intuitive reader at Firefly Hollow, or one of them actually. There's a number of really good readers that work through Firefly Hollow. I am your astrologer for tonight, and we'll be taking a look at what the major aspects and planetary activity is for the month of August. This is something I do each and every month here on the Firefly Hollow station. So what we have coming up is quite an interesting month. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Whoop. And we're going to move to that one and share. We want that version of it. All right. So for this particular month, we've got two eclipses coming up. One in Leo and one in Pisces. The Pisces one will be the 6th of, I believe, 7 full Pisces Virgo eclipses over these past couple of years. And now that it's no longer in retrograde, Mercury is moving at its regular breakneck pace, and it's actually going to be changing sign twice during the month of August. Mars and Venus will change sign as they often do. Mars usually does every single month. Venus usually does every single month. Mars will as well. And Mars will also be making a difficult connection and rub Neptune the wrong way in this particular month. But I'm really excited by a beautiful little kiss that's going to be happening between Jupiter and Saturn at the very end of this month. So why don't we go ahead and get ourselves underway, and you can see just what kind of exciting stuff is coming up for you. So first up, on August 6th, we have Venus entering the sign of Libra. And it is truly, it's its own sign. So it's very, very comfortable here in the sign of Libra. And it's going to be actually coming through Libra twice in 2026 because of retrograde action. The first time will be August 6th. Here, let me move that banner out of the way here. Take that out. August 6th through September 10th, when it shifts into the sign of Scorpio, then it's going to be going retrograde and move back into Libra on October 25th through December 4th, when it once again will move into Scorpio. But while it's in Libra, this is absolutely the time to think charm and disarm. It's all about persuasion rather than force. Venus is the planet of how do we achieve rapport? How do we form connections with other people? And Libra is all about how do we do this so that everybody wins? It's that win-win, harmonious kind of sign. So putting those two together, it's all about tact. It's all about persuasiveness. It's all about, well, if you read the tarot, or if you've ever had a tarot reading, it's very similar to the Strength card, making change through soft control, not the aggression that you can find, say, for example, with the Emperor, where it's by force, or through the Chariot, brute strength, but instead through gentle persuasion and trying to bring someone along to your point of view. You can also think of it as grace under pressure. That's another way to think of Venus in Libra. When it comes to finances, because Venus does also talk about money, finances tend to benefit well when Venus is resting in its own sign, provided there are no other difficulties going on at the same time with other planets. So what I would think about, though, is really where can you collaborate with others to bring two entities together to make those dollars more viable? Because Venus is all about partnerships. So where you can make partnerships happen or collaboration possible, that's when you're going to probably find your best financial benefit coming through. Negotiations should go well. Consensus decisions could go extremely well while Venus is in Libra. All of these things make a great deal of sense if you are thinking about them in terms of finances. When it comes to partnerships, and this is not just, religion, intimate partnerships, but business partnerships, friendships, you can really think about cooperation going on here, about getting along with others, great harmony going on in partnership. There's a lot of team building, conflict resolution that goes on when Venus is in Libra. There's a lot of deeply caring support going on for each other when Venus is in this particular sign. Venus also rules beauty. It rules the aesthetics. It rules harmony, color, form. Um, Again, harmony, not just sound, but color too. You're not going to have a lot of jarring textures or jarring shapes or jarring colors side by side and feel comfortable with that while Venus is in Libra. So you can really take a look at appreciating life's finer things while Venus is in Libra. Be a great time to invest in art or in anything that involves color or art or design. Looking at harmony and balance in your home is a great idea too. Fairness and equity in all relationships are definitely the big thing to think about while Venus is in Libra. It's not a time to think about causing discord. It won't end well. Instead, work towards creating consensus rather than conflict. As I mentioned, in October, Venus is going to enter a 42-day retrograde period, which will run from October 3rd through about November 14th, when it will then again start moving forward and then finally slip out of Libra altogether on December 4th and move solidly into the sign of Scorpio. But that revisit that we will get again in October will really give you a good chance to take a look at where your relationships, perhaps, or friendships, or partnerships might need to have some attention paid to them. Take a real good look at those things in your life from now until September 10th, and then again when it revisits in October, see where some fine-tuning might be able to take place. Next up, on August 9th, we have Mercury, the planet of how do we communicate, how do we gather and disseminate information, shifting into the sign of Leo. It will be making our thinking and our communicating far more Leo-oriented, which would then be proud, expressive, confident, warm, generous. Big ideas are on your mind when Mercury is in Leo. You know, not the little teeny persnickety details. That's not what Leo is all about. So looking at the big picture is very, very much what Mercury in Leo is going to be interested in. You tend to be more sure of yourself when Mercury is in this sign, more sure of your own ideas, the words you choose, the times you choose to make a conversation make sense or make a point. It can be a lot more telling about you taking center stage during this period of time. It's a good time to speak up for yourself, for your needs, and for your agenda. And it can also, you will also feel more confident while Mercury is in this sign. And this is for all of us. I mean, some obviously to a greater degree than others, depending on what else is going on in your chart at any given time, or what your Mercury was at the time of your birth. But in general, most people will find that when Mercury enters Leo, it tends to be a warm and very expressive time, creative time for us. When our communication style is usually a little bit more theatrical, a little bit more individualized, a little more creative during this period of time, we can sell an idea with a little bit more panache and charm than under normal circumstances. Pursuing individual goals would work really well during this time. Don't forget, the sun rules Leo. So it's all about the individual. So if you have something that you really want to try to get across and try to sell, then make it timed during the period when Mercury is in Leo, which is August 9th through the 25th. You might be able to find yourself having a better end result than not. It's a time for expansive storytelling because, let's face it, Leo can spin a good yarn. We tend to be a little bit more self-centered when Mercury is in Leo, forgetting others' needs sometimes and others' viewpoints because it's all about us during this particular time. So we need to be really careful not to let our pride get in the way or our need to take center stage make us forget that other people are also experiencing Mercury in Leo and they'll want their time in the sun too. So if we can try to make sure that we share that spotlight as much as we can, it should end up well for everybody. In addition to making sure that you share the limelight, also share a certain amount of tact, shall we say, for other people's ideas. When Mercury is in Leo, we tend to think our ideas are the best. We tend to think our words are the best, that our concepts, our point of view is the one that matters most. And it can make us sometimes, if we're being unaware, a bit dismissive of others' ideas, others' viewpoints, and others' words. So that's something to definitely be on your guard against. Leo is a fixed sign, just like Taurus, like Scorpio, like Aquarius. It can tend towards a little bit of rigid thinking. It's like, it's my way or the highway. So be wary of that. Make sure that you don't end up thinking that your way is the only way and the only idea that has any validity. Okay. And don't let your ego, which is quite healthy when Mercury is in Leo, don't let your ego blind you to potentials for collaborative experiences, because that can really be when your best possible ideas come to the forefront. If you can take your ideas that you feel so strongly about, combine them with someone else's ideas that they feel strongly about, create a collaborative environment, you could end up with sheer magic. So absolutely, have pride in your thoughts, but remember others will have those as well. And that time again is between August 9th and August 25th, when the planet of Mercury will shift into the sign of Virgo. Next, we have Mars shifting out of Gemini and into Cancer. Now, Mars is the planet of action, moving forward, motivation and drive, the libido. So when you think about this particular planet meshed with Cancer, it's not its most comfortable, because Cancer is about emotions, whereas Mars is all about drive, right? So we're looking at all of action is going to be emotionally driven for the most part during this period, while Mars is in Cancer. It will be there from August 11th through September 27th. So we're not really into logical thinking at this point in time. There can be a lot of mistakes that can be made. So you need to be on the lookout for any other kind of potentials for making a gut reaction as opposed to a smart reaction. Decisions are often made intuitively, which in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as you're also keeping logic sort of somewhere in the background. It's good to trust your gut, but you also need to make sure that you're paying attention to all of the intelligence that's made available to you, the data that's made available to you. Because Cancer rules our loved ones, the people that we care about, we are fiercely protective of family members, the people that we love, the people that we care about. Mars is the protector. It's the soldier. It's the warrior energy. Now you put that together with Cancer, and this is the fierce mama bear. Do not cross my young that kind of energy to it. So you want to be also aware that Cancer is about safety and security. So you may end up finding yourself feeling very motivated to safeguard your home, as well as wherever your loved ones happen to be at any given time. Now, motivation and drive are often tied very closely to mood, because that's what Cancer is. Cancer is ruled by the moon, and the moon fluctuates, and that's how moons work, right? That's how moods work. So our motivation and drive will likely be tied to whatever mood you happen to be in. You need to pay attention to that. It's a time that we play defense instead of offense, unless your chart is built quite a bit otherwise. Mars, when it is in the sign of Cancer, tends to be far more on the defensive as opposed to in an aggressive format. It can actually end up being passive aggressive if you're not careful. So make sure that because direct confrontation is not something that Cancer likes, even though Mars does, Cancer doesn't. So you may find yourself yearning towards that aggression by being passive aggressive, if that makes any sense at all. It's great, however, to put that energy that you have into home do-it-yourself projects, home improvement projects, redesign projects. It's a great time for doing actual hard work on fixing things around the house. Not necessarily renovation, maybe, because there's not a whole lot. I guess there is a decent amount of time between August 11th and September 27th, but it would be more you doing it yourself as opposed to trying to get a contractor in on time. It could be great for painting. It could be great for redecorating that you can do yourself. That would be a wonderful way to use that energy. And then finally, it's a great time for family planning. Mars rules the libido and sex. Cancer rules family. So it makes sense that those two could work well together. So that again is August 11th through September 27th. On August 12th, the following day, we end up with a solar eclipse at 20 degrees of Leo, 1 minute. Now, this Leo solar eclipse, a solar eclipse is the same thing as it's a time when we have the sun and the moon in the same degree and sign. It's a new moon. Okay. So with the solar eclipse in Leo, this is a time when you really are going to be making the most of your personal power, your sense of following your own passion. Remember how we talked about Mercury shifting into Leo and that idea of individuality? Well, it's that same basic energy in play here. An eclipse tends to be like throwing open a window in a dark room. You're going to have all kinds of opportunities presented to you during this period of anywhere from 3 to 6 months following a solar eclipse, where we are demanded to be our authentic selves, to no longer hide our light under a bushel basket, to find out where can we take advantage of leadership opportunities, finding out where we need to emphasize our personal courage and take that step forward instead of utilizing self-limiting beliefs to keep us in the background. This is probably going to be felt most strongly by people who have their planets anywhere, the personal planets and sensitive points, for example, the ascendant, the MC of the chart, in the degrees between 15 and 25 degrees of Leo, but also the other fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius. That's where you're going to feel it the most. So let's say, for example, you happen to have your ascendant is at about 16 degrees of Leo. You will feel this extremely strongly to step out and be in the public eye, because the ascendant is how you're seen by other people. If it's the MC that has somewhere around 20 degrees of Leo there, then you're going to be asked to step up at work, perhaps, or in your community, perhaps taking on a role in some kind of a community leadership role of some kind. If it's in the 5th house, where can you step out and be seen creatively? Maybe it's time to take that solo in your church choir, or to publish that story on a website. You know what I'm saying? Don't be afraid to be your individual, authentic self. That's all this is going to be saying. And it's going to give you lots of opportunities to give it a try. On August 16th, this is when we have probably the only major, I don't want to call it negative, let's say challenging aspect of this particular month, the biggie for me. Mars is making a square to Neptune at this point in time. It becomes exact on the 16th of August, but it is in orb. In other words, we can feel it anywhere from August 15th through the 18th. Now, remember, we talked about Mars being motivation and drive, right? So Neptune, we think about Neptune, this is about our creativity. It's about spirituality. It is about our connection to nature. It is about our dream states. It's about loss. It's about idealism. So you put those two together in a challenging, friction kind of oriented way. And what we can be dealing with is that motivation and drive can feel blunted. It can feel like, action moving forward feels like it's got a roadblock to it, like you've got chains keeping you from moving forward. Ambition becomes more of a dream than reality. This is really a time not to do these 3 particular days, but instead to plan to do after this particular square is finished, after the 18th. Vitality can be low because Mars also deals with our vitality, our energy level. So if it's dealing with Neptune, making a difficult connection, it's spreading out that energy. Think about Neptune. Neptune rules water, right? It's a water-based planet. Pisces is connected with Neptune. So what does water do? Water spreads out, fills in all the nooks and crannies. It's not focused, right? So when Mars is connected to this, it's kind of like we take one step forward, and it's not just two steps back. It's like, okay, I took one step forward. Now I want to lie down for a nap. That's how depleted we can end up feeling. So I would say if you have something that is going to require physical stamina, try to time it around these dates, not plan it for these particular dates. This is spiritual warrior energy. In other words, it's the energy of either the zealot or Archangel Michael with the fiery sword, where our beliefs take on that energy of fighting for what we believe in. You need to be wary of passive-aggressive behavior because remember, Neptune doesn't like confrontation, but Mars likes to push. So it's very similar to the idea of Mars in Cancer. Neptune doesn't like confrontation either. So it would much rather be in the background. There can be a lot of confusion related to what you believe in or what you want to do next, what you're choosing to put your energy towards. There can even be deliberate misdirection, either you doing it or having it done to you. So be on the lookout for those couple of things during these 3 days. It may manifest itself as emotional vulnerability. In other words, there can be this sensation of guilt, and you don't really know where it's coming from. Shame, the idea of past mistakes coming up that are haunting you, and you can't seem to shake it. These are the kinds of old wounds that can bubble themselves up when Mars is making a square to Neptune. Try to put your energy, if you can, during these 3 days. Now, we've told you what not to do, right? Here's what you should be doing, though. You could go ahead and put your energy into any creative or spiritual endeavors, planning them especially. Painting is wonderful. Music, dance is wonderful, especially dance. And the reason I say that, for those of you who may know Van der Volk's book, I think it's Van der Volk, forgive me if I've got his name wrong, The Body Keeps the Score. We can find that trauma, old trauma from childhood or from just past relationships, become trapped in the body if we don't allow that energy, if we don't let ourselves, number one, feel our emotions, but also if we don't process those emotions. So dance is a wonderful way, movement is a wonderful way to let those emotions empty, shall we say, from our body and allow them to move and give us a little bit of relief in that sense. So that would be a really good use of this energy. Watch out for any escapist tendencies, whether it happens to be along the idea of bad habits that we shouldn't get involved in. Neptune does deal with addictions, but also in terms of sitting and scrolling for hours on end or shopping, for hours on end. Try to avoid those. Watch out for those. Be on the lookout. You can find that you will be drawn to your partner's hopes and dreams during this time because, again, Mars rules the libido. So it's possible that may be the way you're able to connect with a partner, through giving them some feedback and some sense of connection to their hopes and dreams, and vice versa, them to yours. So just an idea, and remember, this is not a long, miserable, horrible transit. It's only 3 days. So keep aware, and you should be just fine. Then on the 22nd, the sun will move into the sign of Virgo. Virgo season is a time when we absolutely have a deep desire for order, for practicality, to make the most efficient use of our time, the most efficient use of our talents, to not waste either our time or our energy on things that are not going to yield positive results. This is a phase in which we are far more analytical. possibly far more critical on the positive sense as well as on the negative sense. It's a time to make health and fitness a great focus. This is a really good time for that. Virgo is the natural ruler of the sixth house of health. Where can you be of service? It's also the house of service and slavery, if you want to go into the old traditional astrology. So where can you be of service? How can you use your talents to the benefit of the community? Something you could think about is, where do you need to be better organized? Where do you need to be more precise, more efficient? It's a great time to look at your own systems, wonderful Virgo word, systems, perhaps at work or at home, and see, well, this isn't working. This particular corner of the living room always seems to get cluttered. Once the sun moves into Virgo on August 22nd, that would be a wonderful time to figure out, how do I keep that from happening? How do I establish a good routine that will keep the house exactly the way I want it to be, bandbox ready for anybody who knocks on the door? Okay, that's one way to utilize that energy. It's also a great time to focus on self-improvement, because Virgo loves to tweak. Virgo loves to take what is and make it better. That's really what it's all about. So the difficulty is with Virgo is, if there's nothing to tweak, then they'll look for a problem if it isn't there. So what you need to be careful of when the sun enters Virgo, it doesn't matter what your sun sign is. Everybody's going through this sort of extra little veneer on top of our own sun signs. We need to avoid being overly critical of others and the way they do things, their systems. You have to be careful not to go down the rabbit hole of worry, what I call hamster on the wheel thinking, where it's, this constant remuneration, rethinking, overthinking. That's a better way to put it. Remuneration is money, actually, now that I think about it. Another way to think about it is to stay in the present, to remain mindful. That will keep you from getting onto that difficult bandwagon. And try not to be so over concerned about the details of an issue that you're working on, to the point that you miss the big picture. Because Virgo is very detail oriented, very focused on each individual. The phrase, don't miss the forest for the trees. They go right for each leaf, each vein on each leaf. So it's really important to make sure that you try to maintain a certain amount of perspective when the sun enters Virgo period. Great time, though, to set goals. It's a wonderful time to organize long-term projects, anything that takes focused mental energy. Okay, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, just as Gemini is. So it's all about thinking and data and gathering information. It's a fabulous time to think about, as I said, your health, being of service to others, and any kind of work-related project that involves meticulous attention to detail. So if you can time things for the period between August 22nd and September 22nd, that's going to be your best possible. Then on August 25th, Mercury will shift signs again. Mercury will enter Virgo, which is quite nice because Mercury is really comfortable here. It is the ruler of Virgo. 3 days earlier, as you know, we just talked about the sun moving into Virgo. So now Mercury, how we think, how we communicate, it will follow suit into that same potentially overly critical, but very analytical kind of viewpoint. It moves in on the 25th, and it will remain in Virgo until September 10th. It's a time for analytical thinking, for problem solving. It's a great time to solve the issues that have required heavy thinking, that have required you to really look at all dispassionately, non-emotionally, all of the issues that require very good thinking skills. Communication is very data-oriented, fact-based. Airy-fairy ideas are of no interest during this period of time, or at least of very little interest, depending on what your own sign of Mercury happens to be. Hard data is far more compelling during this period of time. It can be hard, though, to convince others when you're being too dry and too analytical. Remember that one of the ways we're able to persuade others can be to remember that there still needs to be a human component, an emotional hook, shall we say, of some kind. So if during this period of time between August 25th and September 10th, September 10th, you need to in some way try to sell yourself or sell an idea, remember to sit down and think about the emotional connection as well, so that you can connect on an emotional level with persons that you are trying to persuade, trying to convince. Make it something where you can forge a connection between yourself and them. Otherwise, it's simply dry data, and it will be nowhere near as compelling and nowhere near probably as successful. Decision making is usually based on intellect as opposed to emotions at this point in time, but it is really important not to throw out the emotional baby with the bathwater, so to speak, as I just mentioned. It's also a time for creating, as I mentioned, when the sun moves into Virgo, especially with Mercury in Virgo, creating and or tweaking systems of organization. This is absolutely Mercury in Virgo's bailiwick. You will absolutely find an amazing amount of, what's the word I'm looking for? Success, of course, but also efficiency coming forward if you make your changes and adjustments during this period of time. On August 28th, we have our next eclipse. This is a lunar eclipse or a full moon, and it is in Pisces. Anytime there is a full moon, by the way, or an eclipse, is when the nodes of the moon are within 19 degrees of the sun and moon. Sun and moon in a new moon are in the same degree and sign. Full moon, they're on opposite sides in the same degree. For example, the lunar eclipse says that the moon is at 4 degrees of Pisces, 54 minutes, while the sun is at 4 degrees of Virgo, 54 minutes, right? Well, for it to be an eclipse, it means that the nodes of the moon are right within 19 degrees of that 4 degree setup right at this point in time. So that can really bring the concept of karma into play, especially when we're looking at the Virgo Pisces axis. So I would take a look at where karma may be playing itself out for you during this particular lunar eclipse. We can always expect some kind of an emotional release to be in place. It's time to take off the rose-colored glasses during this eclipse. Lunar eclipses tend to show us, whether we like it or not, where things need to be illuminated. Old secrets may pop up that you really wish weren't popping up. It's better for you to bring them out yourself than to have them dumped on you. It's a time when we need to set aside unrealistic goals. Make our goals and our milestones for achievement reachable, and expectations as well for ourselves and for others. They have to be reasonable. That's what we have to take a look at. And it's also a time to let go of self-limiting beliefs. We need to look for any undeniable spiritual insights. And this is where you could really have some huge breakthroughs, especially if you're in therapy at the moment or doing any kind of self-help kinds of work, shadow work especially. You may find yourself really seeing some breakthroughs coming into play during this period of time. It can be painful, but worth it if you allow yourself to work through it. You can gain insight into your spiritual beliefs during this particular eclipse. You will suddenly realize what matters to you and what doesn't. What no longer is what you believe and what is. And it can be a really remarkably powerful time. It really can, if you allow yourself to entertain the idea of change. It's fantastic because of the Virgo Pisces axis that we're working with here for the creative spark to be ignited. And that's because Pisces, the other side of this whole equation, is really good at seeing patterns. They're really good at that. And it's when we see patterns where others don't, where we think outside the box, where we take chaos and allow it to sort of frame where we can solve problems, that's where creativity is born. So I would really recommend that you become comfortable with uncertainty during this particular lunar eclipse, because that's when you will find some amazing creative leaps could be found. It's a time to really look at your own emotional patterns. Which ones do you need to release? Which ones do you need to let go of? A time to really utilize movement and exercise that involves the collective chi. Now, this can be Tai Chi, this can be yoga, this can be meditation, this can be walking meditation is a good one as well. But the whole idea is Reiki is a fantastic way to be utilizing this energy as well. It's the idea of not draining your own personal chi, but instead pulling from the collective, right up from Mother Earth during this particular period of time. Drawing on the collective sort of keeps the flow going instead of wearing yourself out. And then finally, it's a great time to, I'm sorry, I didn't finish that thought. It's a great time in order to harness your own intuition, to listen to your own gut. The more you can get things flowing, the better your ability to be able to hear your own inner divine voice. It's a time to be very careful about making sure you're clear in your communications. It's very easy during this particular lunar eclipse and the 2 to 6 months that follow it to end up having hurt feelings, misunderstandings, because you simply either you weren't listening or you weren't clear in your communication. And when I say you, I mean all of us, okay? We, maybe that's a better way to put it. The people who are going to be affected most by this particular eclipse are those who have any of their personal planets or their sensitive chart points, the ascendant, the MC, the descendant, the IC, resting in the early degrees of the mutable signs. And those are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So if you have, for example, let's say you've got your MC is resting at 3 degrees of Pisces, you will probably feel this more than someone who does not, okay? And then finally, the very last thing for this particular month, this is that kiss that I was mentioning. It's an absolutely lovely, lovely transit. Jupiter at 13 degrees of Leo, 41 minutes, is making a beautiful 120-degree angle called a trine to Saturn at 13 degrees of Aries, 41 minutes. Now, Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion, of luck, of abundance. And Saturn, as we know, is the planet of boundaries, responsibilities, fears, structure, slow and steady progress. So you put those two together in a really positive transit like this, and what you're getting is a fantastic aspect for long-term planning, practical growth. This is a time when, if you have done the work, if you have put the discipline into place, you should really be able to take advantage of some fantastic growth, because Saturn's long-term ambition is going to mesh beautifully with Jupiter's good luck. It's a really great combination. It strikes the perfect balance between growth and expansion, practicality and optimism, discipline and vision. I've always called Jupiter-Saturn connection controlled expansion. We've all, seen companies that maybe grew too quickly, outgrew themselves so fast that they couldn't keep up with themselves. This kind of a transit, however, it doesn't lend itself that way. This is controlled expansion. And it really, really is a time when discipline and hard work will truly pay off for you. It's a time when hope and optimism are very much in play, but they're also tempered by realism. So you're not going to be, all airy-fairy and hoping for the best while, not really looking at reality. So it tends to definitely pay off. I would recommend if you're in business and want to try to time goal setting during this particular period between August 28th and September 4th is when it is in orb. It's exact at 6:08 p.m. on the 31st, but you'll start feeling it a couple of days, 3 days ahead of time. Utilize SMART goals. Those of you who are unaware, it's a planning concept, SMART goals. We start with specific, SMART, specific. In other words, clearly establishing what you want in your goals, that they be measurable, that you know how are you going to know when goals are reached? They have to be measurable, right? They have to be achievable. They've got to be what you have for resources, what you have for time, skill set, and existing conditions have to be possible. They have to be achievable goals. Are relevant. They have to be relevant goals, making sure that they're still in line with what your desired values and outcomes are for this particular project. And they need to be time bound. In other words, when is it going to need to be coming to fruition? When does it need to be completed? So SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. You do that during this period of time and get the ball rolling, shall we say, for long-term goals. The sky is the limit. Absolutely, the sky is the limit during this. Just remember that slow and steady will win the race. Discipline will lead to the materialization of long-term goals. And patience and tenacity are really going to be your friend in order to make these changes really come to fruition. It'll also be a really good time for you to recognize your efforts and those of others. So pay attention to those options. And that pretty much does it for this particular astro weather for August. I hope that this particular month is going to really yield some wonderful benefits for you. It's a great period for planning, a wonderful time to get your ducks in a row with all the Virgo energy that's in place, and a really nice time to be able to make your home and your family as safe and as protected as you possibly can with that Mars and Cancer coming into play. Have a wonderful, wonderful August, and let me know how it works out for you. We'll see you at the end of next month. Take care.